Remnants of tube drills and circular saws found all over Egypt left behind in hard granite stones. Over 1,000-ton blocks quarried from deep in the bedrock. Why was one left behind halfway quarried? And the 100-ton boxes of the Serapeum of Saqqara, found in an underground bedrock tunnel carved to virtual perfection with a mirror finish. Today, on Infinite History, we will make the case and explore 3 important ideas for extremely advanced ancient Egyptians and the true builders of the pyramid and Egypt's oldest, most complex structures. By looking at this evidence with an open mind, it's clear they 100% had access to high levels of technology and an ability to work in massive megalithic stones as if they were just a few pounds of soft clay. To begin, it would be wise to give you a reference of the current mainstream theory of history as we know it. The history of human society supposedly all started with the ancient Sumerians 6,000 years ago. The Sumerian tablets are the oldest known written records. Then some almost 1,000 years later, the ancient Egyptian civilization is believed to have started, some 5,100 years ago, containing up to 10 different time periods in its civilization and cultural timeline from when the Egyptians ruled over Egypt. The one we're most focused on is the early dynastic period and the Old Kingdom, which is the presumed theory of when the pyramids are said to have been built some almost 5,000 years ago. The evidence from the archaeological record shows them only having access to the metals such as copper and dolerite pounding stones, which they use for hammers. These are the only tools that they are believed to have had access to, and they are nowhere in the neighborhood of being able to cut and carve hard granite stone, let alone create something with a measurable perfection of less than 1/20th of a human hair. Think about that. Copper is 3 to 5 magnitudes below granite in hardness, as seen by the Mohs scale displayed here. Not to mention the corundum vases and boxes that are a 9 on the Mohs scale, which can only be cut by a harder stone such as diamond. Ben from Uncharted X has an amazing set of recent videos displaying just this, as one of the vases was examined and scanned by professional meteorologists Alex Dunn and Nick Sierra with a structured light scanner that is used to check the accuracy of aircraft parts. They were not even believed to have the wheel in dynastic times during the construction of the pyramids. How could they possibly carve incredibly dense igneous rock with extreme precision, only having primitive tools? It simply doesn't make sense. The first very important piece of evidence that proves without a doubt that ancient pyramid builders had access to high levels of technology is seen throughout the ancient sites in Egypt, if you know where and what you're looking for. Tube drill holes, tube drill cores, and what appear to be circular saw cuts left in stone can be found, revealing astounding evidence left behind by the signature of whatever tool was used to create these markings. If you look at the details of the tool's so-called thumbprint with an eye of a highly educated engineer and examine the very fine technical details like the mind of Christopher Dunn, it is incontrovertible. Extremely advanced stone carving and cutting techniques as well as tools were used by the builders of the pyramids. These tube drill holes range in size from quite small to relatively big, 12 to 14 inches, as seen by this image in the Cairo Museum, showing their technical ability to work in different types of stone and in many different sizes. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Ben from Uncharted X and Christopher Dunn for building the foundation layer of these ideas and compiling an immense amount of research on this topic and many more about ancient Egypt and ancient history. Please go give them a subscribe and check them out after this video for an even more extreme in-depth look into these subjects. I will reference their work a lot throughout the video. Leaving behind a core that would need to be removed, these tube drills were very thin, as you can see by the evidence of the lip left in one of these holes in basalt rock in Abu Sabir. The great Flinders Petrie, who was one of the first on record to examine and find these cores, with a scientific mind theorized. The drills used to create this spiral groove would have had to apply an incredible amount of pressure and possibly up to 3 or 4 tons into the stone. To create these spiral groove markings at the speed at which they traveled, as seen by the famous drill core number 7, which was reverse engineered to find this data from the circular markings left behind. Some almost 80 years later, the great Christopher Dunn, a manufacturing engineer with over 50 years of experience in the aerospace field, would examine Petrie's famous core number 7. It is predicted whatever this drill was, it was able to cut into hard granite stone at a speed 500 times greater than our modern day diamond tip drills, of which we need massive amounts of hydraulics and special cooling lubricants to work properly in these stones. These drill cores show undeniable evidence. Whatever this drill was, it could cut 1 inch into the stone per every 10 revolutions of the drill, making some of the hardest stones known seem as though they were just drilling through balsa wood. Chris Dunn speculates the drill had some sort of ultrasonic technology which would explain why it was able to cut through quartz, granite, and diorite so easily by resonating with its underlying base frequency of the stone. Keep in mind, igneous rock is made up of an amalgamation of different materials: quartz, feldspar, and mica. It is extremely hard to explain this evidence of clear tool markings with the primitive technology that the dynastic Egyptians are believed to have, as per mainstream archaeological history. All other experiments with sand and some sort of copper saw or drill do not leave this evidence behind of perfect circular markings. This leaves only 2 options. Either the dynastic Egyptians had much greater technology, machinery, and understanding than mainstream archaeology believes, or they clearly inherited these objects from a much older, more advanced civilization that did have this ability and access to technology, which clearly makes the most sense with the evidence at hand. The second piece of undeniable evidence for mind-bendingly complex objects created with utter perfection prove without a shadow of a doubt that ancient Egyptian pyramid builders had very high levels of intelligence and access to some sort of what we can only describe as computerized tools and machinery. What is known as the stone boxes at the Serapeum of Saqqara. These boxes range from 50 to 100 tons each and are placed in an underground bedrock tunnel system. Bear in mind, each of these boxes weigh as much or more than a Boeing 757, and they were quarried and carved from deep within the bedrock where the purest stone can be found. And also, bear in mind, there is only slightly more than 1 foot of clearance to the side in the tunnels from the width of these boxes. How could any large number of people and combination of elephants even fit down into this pitch black bedrock tunnel system and move these objects into place? Logically, it just doesn't make sense with the techniques and abilities that the dynastic Egyptians are believed to have access to. It's simply impossible. The boxes at the Serapeum of Saqqara are one of the most important pieces of evidence proving that ancient Egyptians had sophisticated engineering and precision levels of technology, possibly more advanced and technical than our current abilities today. The biggest of these boxes weighs over 100 tons, and all of these boxes are carved out of a single piece of granodiorite or corundum, including the lids. This is an important detail because if the builders were to have made any mistakes at any point in carving or refining these boxes, you would need to start over from scratch and get a brand new several 100-ton block. Seems like a simple task, doesn't it? The starting block were most likely at least twice the weight of the box once hollowed out and carved. And also bear in mind, the surfaces are polished with a mirror finish, which can only be achieved when your surface is perfectly flat, down to 1/1000th of an inch or less, that of which will reflect light back off the surface, as measured by engineer Christopher Dunn using a precision straight edge, within 1/20th of a human hair, or with a precision of 0.0005 of an inch, or 0.00127 of a millimeter. When putting a flashlight behind the straight edge, no light would shine through, proving the surfaces were extremely precise and flat. The corners of these boxes contain perfect right angles and symmetry in 3 dimensions. For over 10 feet in length, this is no easy or simple task, and is impossible to achieve with copper chisels and dolerite pounding stones. The vertical and horizontal surfaces were crafted perfectly parallel to each other, which cannot be done with the tools found in the archaeological record. And I am using the word perfect in the most literal sense here possible. These boxes are built with astonishing accuracy. How could you achieve a mirror finish less than 1/1000th of an inch with copper chisels and pounding stones for over 10 feet on all walls and the lid of the boxes in 3 dimensions? It's just not possible. And if it is, please do an experiment and let me know. It just doesn't make logical sense with the tools found in the archaeological record. Even a 3rd grader would be able to determine this. Logically, it just doesn't add up to craft these boxes with such perfection for it to only have been the resting place for a divine bull carcass. They clearly were made to serve a function, using such precise accuracy in their creation. Yet we are told to believe the dynastic Egyptians created these boxes with amateurly scribbled hieroglyphs chiseled onto the side. These hieroglyphs were clearly added at a later time, proving the dynastic Egyptian civilization inherited these amazing megalithic boxes. Why would they not polish the hieroglyphs to the same mirror finish, and why are they not placed and carved with perfection as well? There are so many flaws within the hieroglyphs. It's clear a massive separation in carving techniques and abilities are on display here. We struggle to reach this level of precision today, having to enlist the use of massive hydraulics and diamond tip machinery. This doesn't even take into account how they transported these boxes that weigh 50 to 100 tons. Just look at the size of cranes and gigantic trucks we need to move these massive objects similar in weight to these boxes today. It is truly impossible to carve these single-piece bedrock granite blocks with copper chisels and dolerite stone hammers, having no assistance from some sort of advanced machinery. The 3rd piece of undeniable evidence showing proof that ancient Egyptian builders had advanced knowledge and highly sophisticated machines, comparable or possibly even more complex than their current technology, what is known as the unfinished Obelisk of Aswan. This monstrous and magnificent artifact was all but fully covered in sand and granite rubble until the late 1920s, when the great Egyptologist Reginald Engelbach discovered and began the process of excavating the obelisk from the rubble. Weighing almost 1,200 tons, or the same weight as 24 humpback whales. At 41.7 meters long, or 137 feet, this is truly a massive object in every sense of the word. The unfinished obelisk of Aswan is one of the most mind-bending objects from history. It alone proves the builders of ancient Egypt had superior levels of intelligence and understood engineering to a degree far greater than believed by mainstream archaeologists. How could they even have lifted it from over 15 meters down into the bedrock over the rest of the quarry and then transported it 1.2 miles or almost 2 kilometers to the Nile River? Transporting this obelisk to the Nile River alone is a monumental task that would cause us much trouble today. We would have to craft specially designed trucks and machinery to accomplish getting the obelisk out of the quarry into the Nile River. Not to mention the 800 kilometers or 500 plus miles it would have to travel to Giza. And that is just scratching the surface of this mystery. One of the most perplexing pieces of evidence is what people refer to as the scoop marks present around the obelisk, which are clear evidence left behind from whatever tool or machine was being used to quarry this block. There is no evidence of feathering the stone, placing wooden wedges in between the holes chiseled into the blocks to split the stone. This technique leaves a very different thumbprint or signature behind. Extremely different from the technique used to quarry rocks as seen here by these scoop marks in comparison. You can even see the evidence of someone trying to use this feathering technique to split a piece off the top of the obelisk. Luckily, they were unsuccessful, which shows you just how hard this stone truly is. Now, as we look at these scoop marks, it's almost as if the tool that was being used to cut into the stone could slice through it like it was just butter or soft ice cream. One of the most mind-blowing things is the fact that the scoop marks appear on the ceiling of the undercuts of the block as well. These scoop marks being parallel and equidistant give even more evidence from the signature of the machinery that was being used here. We have no evidence of wedge marks, chisel work, or corners left behind. It appears some sort of advanced tube drill was being used that could articulate in various dimensions about its main axis of which it was stationed. Possibly something using ultrasonic vibration with a frequency that could penetrate down to the molecules and atoms of the stone. Similar to a technology we have today, as seen here by these ultrasonic drill tools used for jewelry crafting, that can carve holes into granite that look eerily similar to the marks left behind by the tube drill holes found throughout Egypt. It is clear as the day is long. Dolerite, or any pounding stone, in combination with copper chisels and copper drag saws, simply cannot leave this thumbprint of scoop marks as seen all around the obelisk and throughout Egypt. If this was true, or even possible, why has no one done this today and shown how it is possible through an experiment using just copper and dolerite hammers? I'll let you know. Because it's not. Not to mention the clear lack of space and inherent danger from any number of workers that would have been pounding away for days and days and days on end with 5 to 10 pound dolerite rock balls in such a small confined space. How easily could you smash your neighbor's toes if you lost control of your dolerite hammer? The idea and theory of advanced tools and technology is clearly displaying itself as left behind by the evidence of these scoop mark signatures embedded into the stone. No primitive stone quarrying techniques leave behind anything resembling these thumbprints or signatures. Clearly, an advanced machine or tool was at use here, and this is just scraping the surface of this mystery. How did they transport this over 1,000-ton block more than 800 kilometers or 500 miles to the Giza plateau? This is possibly almost more difficult than quarrying the block itself. What a both amazing and mind-blowing display of evidence left in textbooks of stone for us to reverse engineer. Complex precision, feats of incredible engineering and hidden mathematics present all throughout Egypt and within its most ancient structures. When you sit down and think about it, without a doubt, this proves the ancient builders of Egypt had advanced knowledge and understanding of how this universe works. Again, I want to give a massive shout out to Ben from Uncharted X, Christopher Dunn, and all the others who have helped by laying the groundwork of this research and these ideas for us to contemplate, debate, and work towards reverse engineering as our understanding of this planet and reality becomes more prolific. It is entirely possible this civilization stretched back some 36,000 years, as told by what some only believe to be myth and legend written on the ancient Turin papyrus. The recent discovery of Göbekli Tepe alone has proven the history of our civilization dates back to at least 13,000 years, which is double previously accepted idea by mainstream archaeology, believed to have started 6,000 years ago with the ancient Sumerians. Let me know in the comments if you would like a more in-depth video on each of these topics, or part 2 of the undeniable evidence proving that ancient Egyptians were extremely advanced. Please don't forget to throw us a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. And thanks for tuning in to Infinite History. Remember, nothing is set in stone except the pyramids.